Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Interface.fm, a design podcast by people who design. I hope you all are doing well and keeping yourself during this pandemic. So, in today's episode, we have someone who started his career in a very small city in India and made all the way up to one of the best tech companies in the world. So, today we have Rahul Jain with us, who is working as a product designer at Google. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about his journey, about his ideology, what made him, take certain decisions at a certain point of his life, about his life at Google, and also about how the hiring process works at Google for, for the ambition ones who are looking forward to apply to Google or find Google to be their dream company. So yeah, all I'm gonna say is stay tuned, sit back, and enjoy this episode. So hi Rahul, welcome to Interface.fm.
Hi Ashwin, glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. And how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing good as it can be.
So how are things there with the virus, like the pandemic and everything going on?
Yeah, it's a bit serious over here with the number of cases and but yeah, I think we're hopeful it will get better in a few months. So yeah.
That's nice. So talking about, like, since we're talking about the pandemic, so you must be working from home, right?
Yes, I
And
am working
everyone
from home.
is. So how so did that, like, result in more productivity, or did it kind of reduce the productivity that you used to have pre-COVID times?
Yeah, I think what changes some of the things that you have to accommodate basically while working from home. So now you have a bit more number of meetings, and the work might also be based on like how much the team strategy changes or the team like your team has to do. So I think you have to kind of adjust to that. So for me, it's been a little bit same as what it was pre-COVID, like the workload wise, but
uh,
just the changing in the ways I work. So scheduling and then also managing my time and making sure that the boundary between my work life and personal life doesn't get mixed
uh,
up with all those things. So yeah, it took me some time, but I think I'm much used to it now, and like my productivity is kind of it's good right now.
okay. Okay, so now Rahul, talking about, like, right now you're working as a product designer at Google, right?
Yes.
So, but when I look at your LinkedIn, I see that you started as a web and a graphic design intern. Then you moved to to being a UX designer, and so on. And now you are working as a product designer with Google. So what I want to know is that how has the journey been? Like, what made you take such decisions that led you from that place to here? And of course, like, you've traveled a lot of a big distance, from
Mm-hmm.
starting in Udaipur and working with Google. So how has the journey been so far?
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting. So I started as a engineer. So I studied electronics and communication engineering in Udaipur.
Yeah.
And during that time, when I was in my second year, I kind of started working on like college festivals and events and all these things that happen in college.
Yeah.
So I was working on like graphic design stuff, creating websites for these events, or like social media graphics. So it's kind of like all the stuff related to like creative team that has to do over there. And I think during that time I realized like I was really interested into it. And when was about to graduate, I kind of thought like maybe this is my calling and I should pursue the design field. So I started as yeah, I also did an internship, as you mentioned, like as a
Yeah.
UX, and like not that at that time I didn't even know about UX. So at that time it was like web and graphic design. So I was just like a web slash graphic design intern. So I was doing a little
Yeah.
bit of both. And when I graduated, I took up a job as a graphic designer in Udaipur, and it was like a digital marketing agency. So I was doing a lot of these, again, like logos, graphic design, website
Yeah.
designs. And I think during that time, I realized I found like about the UX as a field. It was although pretty late. It was like around 2015. So
Yeah.
UX was like in India and everywhere. It was pretty like common, and people started to know about it. But I wasn't very aware of it. So
Okay.
uh, at that time, I realized, okay, this is like a great field because in graphic design, you're actually a lot of times you're just doing what you're told to do by the client, and you can't actually think about what the users need or what actually needs to be done.
Yeah.
So I just thought like UX is a great mix of your creative interests and your technical background or your technical interests as well, and that just gels up pretty well in a UX field where you can actually design as well as understand the strategy and understand the technical aspects and actually help some users achieve their goal. So that
Yeah.
was kind of like big motivation. And from there I started taking up like freelance projects, working with startups, getting some projects so that I can learn how to design, how to use like design tools. And gradually after a year or so of doing those, i i uh, I wanted to like pursue masters so that I could like learn
Yeah.
more about research methods, just get like my understanding of UX a little bit better. So I applied to
Yeah.
a master's program here in US. And I think I moved here three and a half years ago, and I
Wow.
completed my masters. And during my masters, I got an internship at Google, and that went pretty well, and I got converted to full time. So I've been
Okay.
working here for almost like a year and a half.
Wow. That's interesting. So, okay. So, like you said, you did your undergrad in engineering, and then you moved your way ahead, and then you started working as a UX designer, as a freelancer when you started
Hmm.
picking up projects.
Yeah.
So, there's a very big discussion that keeps going on about how much important a degree is in terms of design.
Hmm.
I'm sure you also would have heard it somewhere or another.
Yeah.
There's a thing between the self-taught designers and the designers who've like gone and have studied in that discipline. So,
Hmm.
what's your take on that?
I think both have their own pros and cons. For
Yeah.
example, self-taught designers usually they don't like a lot of like people who have studied design knew what they want to do very early in their career, and they kind of chose this thing. Self-taught
Yeah.
designers usually have like background in different things, so they have some more understanding of like I've seen people coming from journalism, from engineering, from
Yeah.
marketing backgrounds, so they have understanding of those fields as well. So they bring that part into design, and that could be like a mix of their design and their background, and also that could be their strength that they bring in the team. So
Yeah.
and with a specialized degree in design, you just have more peers, or you have like a more network to work with. So like finding your first job, also meeting new people, getting to know your alumni in college, that is a
Yeah.
little bit easier because you have like a predefined route, and you have seen other seniors or other classmates do things. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's a bit like it's a debate because there are like sides, each like good and bad sides to each of it. In school, you kind of sometimes you fall into a trap of creating your own bubble and just thinking that this is design and this is what designers do.
Yeah.
But in actual industry, things are very like could be very different from what you have studied. And there's also like this huge gap between what you're taught at school and what actually happens in the industry.
Yeah.
So and with people who are self-taught kind of get into working very quickly. They don't have to spend a lot of time learning. They can like learn while they're doing. So
Yeah.
that actually helps them grow very quickly and learn on while doing the job. So yeah, there's
Yeah.
uh, like pros and cons on both sides.
Yeah. Because I personally believe that a self-taught designer or a designer with a degree, uh, of course, it matters when you're starting your career, but eventually, like, it won't make a difference because eventually, even the guy with the degree would, after a few years, he'll also be a self-taught designer
Yeah.
because things keep changing and you need to stay updated with what's happening in the industry and all.
So
Right.
probably you get a proper push because you have a degree and you get hired by a nice company or something. But I'm sure the one who's a self-taught, he also reached that level
Yeah, I think
in the coming years.
speaking from my experience at Google, I can say they're 50-50. Like half of the
Yeah,
designers I've seen, they have like a background in proper design, and half, or maybe a little bit more than half, are ones who come from like other disciplines or have like backgrounds in something else,
yeah,
and that don't have like necessarily studied design.
yeah. But how long like they've been in the industry that Google hired them? I'm sure they would have been in the industry for a long
Hmm.
time before Google came to them that
I think
why don't you come on board?
so. Depends on the seniority as well, like what the role they're hiring
Yeah,
for.
yeah,
But then it could be like if the it, to the bottom line, it comes down to how good your portfolio and how good your work is, and how good you
yeah,
can actually sell your skills and present yourself. So I don't think so. Like the design degree is necessary to get a job at any company. I would say like
mm,
if you're self-taught or if you're from a design school, if your work and if your portfolio is good, you can get job
yeah,
anywhere. So uh, at bottom line, that comes down to that. So even like
yeah,
having this thing or not having is not the bigger debate, I guess. Like how do you improve your work and constantly grow? I think that's
yeah,
like the main focus point.
yeah. Got it. Okay, so now moving on. So you said that while you were in college, you started interning with companies, right?
Hmm.
You interned with Studio Science and you interned with Google Stadia. Am I saying
Yeah,
that right?
right.
Yeah. Okay. So like, what what was your experience? Like, what is Google Stadia? Like, I've never like I don't know much about Google Stadia
Hmm.
and what all like you like probably did or learned when you were there.
Yeah, so I think Google Stadia is a gaming platform. If you imagine like having PlayStation or an
Yeah.
Xbox without the hardware of having the box of
Oh,
PlayStation or
okay.
this thing, so it's like running high quality games like FIFA or any bigger game, Assassin's Creed or something,
Yeah.
on a Chrome, and like it could be on multiple devices, so you can play the same game on your phone and pause there, come on your laptop and continue from there, and pause that, go to your TV and start
Yeah.
Chromecasting the whole thing. So it's like a cross device product, and
Yeah.
doesn't need any like specific hardware like like a PlayStation box or Xbox. You just need like a controller, or if you are on your laptop, you can just use your keyboard, mouse, and on your phone you can just use the touchpad. So that's like a new way, like a cloud gaming platform to actually
That's
for
interesting.
like serious gamers.
Yeah.
And at that time when I joined, it was in a very early stage, so the product hasn't been launched yet. It's just like a lot of strategies and a lot of like working around how should we do this thing, how should we make these design decisions. So I've never worked on a product in such an early stage before, so that was a great learning for me to see how bigger companies like go about making strategies or thinking about how to launch a product, how to build new features, or how to even like think about your competition, which is already very like very big and very like that. Like the Xbox and PlayStation are like the biggest gaming platforms, right? So
Yeah.
thinking about how do we differentiate our product from them, and also what are our key user journeys and how do we go for it. So I think thinking about those like bigger strategies was one of my biggest learning.
Oh, that's interesting. Is it live now, or is it
It
still
is. I
in
think
work?
it's live in US and Canada, and I think in Europe as well. They'll be launching soon in India.
Okay, I'm going to look forward for that then. Yeah,
Yeah,
and okay, and when you were in your university, you were also working as a TA.
yeah, a teaching assistant.
Yeah. So what was that experience like? Because I've usually seen like this teaching assistants usually in movies, and I've never actually met someone or had a word with
Mm-hmm.
who's actually been like a teacher assistant. So what's that like?
Yeah, so this I've in India I've not seen a lot. At least in my college, didn't have this role. In US, what happens is usually teachers are like professors are kind of very busy, and they don't want to spend a lot of time like have spending time on individual students or checking their work. So if they so basically what a TA does is could be anywhere from like grading students' work, like what things they have, assignments and stuff,
Yeah.
to actually helping them understand things which they didn't understand in the class. Also could be around mentoring, could be helping them with any particular problems that they have. So it's a mix of like different like things that you have to do as a teacher's assistant to help like students actually achieve what they want. What helped me in this role was I actually found out like I was really, because I was talking to so many students and helping them with like, and I was my courses were like intro to human computer interaction. So that was like the first course that students have to take when they come to the master's program. So at that
Yeah.
time they are fairly new and they don't know a lot of things, and they're kind of confused as well. So my role was to actually help them navigate that and help them build their first project and actually learn about design from like the like from coming from a different point of view. So that was a great learning for me to see how people who like have like are pretty new to design, how they look to look about, like how they see design and what are their perspective, and also how do we mentor people who are actually just starting in their careers or have like taken the first step.
That's damn nice. Yeah. Okay. Now moving on. So now you're working as a interaction designer with Google, right?
Yeah.
And so, what does an interaction designer do? Because when now that we see a lot of people are coming into the industry, and we have this discussion. I've had this discussion because according to them, an interaction designer is someone who's just designing interactions according to the design that is going to be implemented, or like something like micro interactions that we see in the application. So what exactly does an interaction designer do?
I think so. From what I understand, and I've worked as an interaction designer, I've worked as a product designer and as a UX designer,
Yeah.
and I see like a very little difference between these roles. Like UX design, product design, and interaction design are kind of very similar. It's just different company use different titles for like the same role. So I would just say,
Yeah.
like for example, Facebook uses product designer, Google uses interaction designer, and a lot of other companies use like UX designer. But at
Yeah.
the end, it just comes down to what your team needs in terms of like design, what skills do they need, and how could you help them do it. So my specific job, like from at Google at least, we look at design as like interaction design as more of a like a broad level role, which works with research, which works with engineering and PM to understand the requirements, and
Yeah.
also create prototypes, work on the designs, do the ideation, do the brainstorming, and come up with a solution and help the team understand the solution, work with them to iterate on the solution and test it later, and also help the team build it with the engineering. So it's like you're working with so many different types of roles. You're working with so many different types of disciplines. Also, it's and a lot of time I've seen like uh, people think interaction design is very like you're working just on the micro interactions or like the little smaller things that happen in the design. uh, that is kind of not exactly the thing that we do. We like almost like any other designer, we go through the entire process, and micro interactions are usually done by motion designers or visual designers who specialize in these kind of micro interactions. As interaction designer, we focus on the whole end-to-end user journey.
Okay. That's
So we design like the how the page interacts, how users
yeah.
interact with the product. Uh, could sometimes it could be like just like could be on a screen, could also be on like a device. So could be like a assistant, or it could
Yeah.
be like a hardware. So there are like multiple types of interfaces and devices. So thinking about what's like a common role which could actually work with all these kind of different disciplines without
Yeah.
actually, because not everyone works on software related products, right?
Yeah. So, so what I'm like able to understand is that if you see an interaction design job posted, it's
Mm-hmm.
not like necessary that you need to know like a complete software. Probably know how it works, like how an interaction can be done, but you don't
Mm-hmm.
actually have to know the detail. Because I've actually come across a lot of people who tend to like they see interaction and they're like, oh, we can't do it, we don't do animations, we don't do, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't apply for that job.
Yeah.
and that's like, talent gone waste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
So
it's very it's always helpful to read the entire job description, because a lot of times if you see the title and if you see the job description, they don't sometimes they don't match, or sometimes you'll understand, okay, this is they're asking something else, but the title says a little bit something else. So it's
uh,
always useful to read that. And also tools wise, I guess I just use like nowadays I'm using Figma mostly
uh,
for like designing and prototyping, and previously I used to use Sketch and InVision. So like just the like tools which are used by any other UX designer. So I didn't use like After Effects or anything else. So it
uh,
was just, yeah.
so talking about tools, so you said you used to work on Sketch. Now you're using Figma. So which one, like if I have to give you an option to choose, which one would you choose?
100% Figma. I've been I love using Figma. It's actually like moving from Microsoft like Word to Google Docs, which everything is online. You can collaborate on the same file,
Yeah,
and our engineers love it because they can actually see work in progress things, and researchers love that because they can go and see all the designs that are in the product at one place. So it's a great for collaboration and like cross team working.
yeah.
So it increases our efficiency. It also, you have the prototyping feature, so you actually like design and build in the same tool. So like everything about it, it's pretty good.
And I think I should not even bring up, like, have you ever tried XD or not?
I've tried XD. XD is actually a bit underrated. It's also really good. Like I've used once for I was working on a project where we had to design interactions with a voice assistant, and they have
Yeah,
like a really cool feature where you can actually integrate like some of these
yeah.
voice design features. So I think that was a great use case.
I personally believe that, in the coming years, XD has a possibility of being bigger than Figma and Sketch,
Mm-hmm.
because of course it's like growing, it's adding features. But then I also look at it that the ecosystem that Adobe has is
Yeah.
so big, and with a lot of people getting into After Effects and everything, and it's all interconnected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So because I've used Photoshop and XD together, I also use Figma, and I love using Figma.
Mm-hmm.
But just a thought that comes to my mind, that in the coming years, XD could be, like, if they work their way around in the right manner, it
Yeah.
could be bigger than Figma and Sketch.
Yeah, for sure. I know it's also good that like these companies are actually like competing and like having features that actually help designers. So for us,
Uh,
it's a good thing. Whichever companies like come up with new things, it'll actually help increase our efficiency and help us like do things much faster. So I'm happy
uh,
with like any tool comes up with a new thing. It's always a good healthy competition, and it's a good thing actually.
that's nice. So now, like when you were telling me a story about, you started where and then you got into Google. Now, what I'm wondering is that, was Google like something that you always like wanted to do or be a part of, or you just went with the flow?
I think it was more going with the flow. I haven't like I didn't imagine in my wildest dream that I'll get a job here, unless like before I got like an internship. Even internship is very competitive, and you have like so many rounds of interviews, and it takes so long for you to like actually get into it.
Yeah,
It was I think it was just step by step. So like working on your portfolio and then like gradually applying and interviewing, and just even with the interviews, you just take one interview at a time and hope like you get through that particular round. So because it's a kind of like a long process. So yeah, I didn't have any like aspirations or goals that this is where I have to be. I was
yeah.
mostly just going with the flow.
Okay. And like you said, so okay, you went with the flow, but when we see new designers, they're like, one day I'm going to work for Apple, one day I'm going to work for Google, which is good. But then I would also, want them to know what a person has to go through when you are applying for that job. Okay, you have a portfolio, very nice, very interesting portfolio. It could like probably get you the interview, but like, how do you go with the stages? Like, you've been through it,
Mm-hmm.
so what do you know? Like, how does the process go, and what would you suggest to the people who would want to like try and apply to Google in the coming years?
Yeah, I think it's everyone should apply it. A lot of people think that they're not good enough, or the role requires a lot more than they have, like skill wise. So I think everyone should apply. Everyone should actually give the interviews. It's online. You can find any role and apply. So and also there's like as far as the process wise goes, having your portfolio is the first step. At least like have few projects with it, with like a case study and like details about you. That's I think that's the step zero, having like a resume and a portfolio. And then you apply. I applied online. You can also get a referral if you know someone, and
Yeah.
from there if things go well, you get a call. You talk with the recruiter. You get a design challenge. So you have like a 1 week to do that design challenge and send it to them. I did that, and after a few days you got to get a call back that they want to do like a voice call, and you have like a 45-minute interview with one of the designer. You talk to the designer. They ask you about that's like a more of a technical round that you have to go through, and once you do that, then it goes to the hiring committee for a decision based on your portfolio and your design challenge and your like interview. And once if they think it's all good, they'll call you in one of their offices, and they'll have like a full day of interview. So from morning to evening they have I think 4 to 5 or 6 rounds of interview, which could have
Wow.
anywhere between talking to designers, talking to researchers, doing some exercises like whiteboard challenge, a little bit of
Yeah.
app critique. So they have like different activities scheduled for you throughout the day. You do that, and then if everything goes well, after a few days you hear back from them, and then you go through the team matching process. So where you actually talk with the different teams that are looking for designers at Google, and like they talk to you, you talk to them, and then if you both think that that's a good fit, then you get an offer. If not, then you just talk to different teams and find which team works best for you and what team has to like you as well. So after all these things, I guess it takes a couple of months because it's a fairly long process and it takes time.
It's
And
a
yeah,
quite intense one as well. But
yeah.
coming to the last one, when you said that you have this team meet kind of a thing where you go and meet the team, you talk to them. But is it possible, like if the team does not like you,
Mhm.
and like will that mean that you don't get the job?
No, you'll still be in the pool of candidates, and other team might be like you. Because when I was doing the team matching thing, I talked to 6 teams, and
Oh,
first three they didn't select me. The last three I got through, so now I had the option to choose between those teams.
which one?
So if you don't get a team match, you just keep talking to different teams unless you get the team that likes you and wants to hire you.
Uh, so how did you like feel when you got the call? Okay, you've been hired or you've been selected and you're requested to join the office. Like,
Yeah, I think that's like one of the best feelings because you've been like through so much. It took so long to actually get through each process, and you didn't even imagine earlier that this would happen. So that was
yeah,
actually just such a big relief and like really excitement that okay, you're actually and I was going as an intern, so I was like very happy because uh, that was like a great start to my career and also an opportunity to learn so much from such like the amazing people that work there. So yeah, very very excited.
okay. Just to be sure, the whole procedure that you just told me about the hiring process,
Hmm.
that happened when they were hiring you for an intern.
For an intern, they don't call you on
Okay.
site. If you go for a full time like which is not an intern, then they call you on site. But other than the on site part, everything else happens
Yeah.
online, and you have to go
Oh
through
wow.
that.
Wow. That's like no wonder people
Yeah,
find it to be like they say that it's really hard to get into Google. I think more than that, I think they probably end up losing patience because you said it's a very long process.
yeah,
So
yeah. That also happens a lot of
that
times.
that's that. Okay. So since we've been talking, this word has come up a lot, which is portfolio. So what's your take on like
Hmm.
how a portfolio should be? Like, should it be quantitative or qualitative or a mix of both? Or like, how exactly should it be?
I think portfolio is something which is basically helps a recruiter or someone hiring to understand what
Yeah.
are your skills, what do you do, what is your background, and what are you good at, and what they can expect from you. So showing like these kind of things is the main purpose of having a portfolio. So a lot of people don't add these details, like what they currently do, what their background is, projects, what was their contribution in the projects, what exactly that they did, what was the impact. So showing all these things are like like very important, and that's what actually recruiters are looking for. Qualitative versus quantitative, I think having both, like because as a designer you actually talk to users, you actually you get the qualitative feedback, and you also work with the teams to understand what's the data around it, and
Yeah.
what's the impact, or what's the problem, how big is the problem. So having both is, I think, it's the best combination.
Yeah, no, I get your point, but when I talk about quantitative, I was referring to, the let's say number of case studies in your portfolio, something like
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah. So I think a lot of, yeah. So the number of case studies, I would say, I think anywhere between 3 to 6, I guess, is like it's a good number
Yeah,
for me. I would say like 4 to 6 is like it's a good number. Not a lot, because like you don't need to put a lot of projects, because sometimes what happens is your first initial 3 projects are really good and the last few aren't
yeah,
very good. And if they see that doesn't put a really good impression of your current skills and current level. So it's always good to just put your best projects and not put everything else, although it can be a bit tempting to show everything that you have
yeah,
done. But you have to make, you have to like put the latest work, not even latest, but the things which could explain what your current level is, your current skills are, rather than your previous experiences, or like the previous projects that you did. And you'll know that for projects which are good and projects which are not very good. And uh, like it's kind of tempting, but you have to make sure that you curate your projects well.
yeah. And for the listeners like who would be listening to our podcast, I would really want to recommend them your website, which I'll probably be dropping down the link to at the video, because I went through it, and I'll be I'll start working on my website very soon, probably the first week of next month. And that was actually, it kind of gave me an idea of how exactly a website should be like when it comes to being a portfolio website. So I personally do recommend, like, all the younger ones who are listening to this, that they should definitely have a look and take some inspiration, get some idea, and go about it. Yeah.
Yep. Great.
Yeah. So now coming to the end, my question would be, like, I have two questions. Like, according to you, what is the future of design?
I think future of design is more and more
Uh,
collaborative. You're actually less of design and more of decision making, or more of like understanding the user requirements and actually helping other, like your team get it, and also make sure that you build it. So it's more of a very like collaborative effort. And now everything is going online, so it's getting more and more on collaborative. Also, like with new technologies coming up like AR,
yeah,
VR, things like voice design. So there's like like a hardware design. So UX is not just limited to like screens. It could also like go well beyond
yeah,
these screens. So thinking about multimodal experiences, multi-device experiences, that could be, I think, a big thing. Also things like AI, blockchain, all these like technologies of like machine learning, that could change a lot about design and how we actually use design to for actually like presenting a product to
yeah,
the user. So designers have to be well updated with the technology. Also things like ethics, things like how do you actually build in compliance? How do you think about users' privacy? So understanding all these, like even things about like law, and also a little bit about legal
yeah.
stuff, that could also be something that designers need to be aware of. And yeah, these things might be, from my perspective, next 4 to 5 years could be like the major requirements of a role.
So, do you think that AI could take over a designer's job?
I don't think so. It will take over as a designer's job, at least. And yeah, I don't think so, because a design, like it might take over some of the things that
Hmm.
designers do, maybe UI design. Some of the things could be automated, but then thinking about what's best for the users, what the UI should be actually, and how it should be presented to the users. That is something that a designer has to decide. So that's why I said like it will become more of a decision making of a job rather than actually pixel
Yeah,
pushing. So that's where like designers have to be very aware of other things, like how do you actually think about business, how do you actually think about the overall
yeah,
impact, and then collaborate with other teams to actually build the product.
yeah. That makes sense. So, Rahul, what would you would want to recommend or suggest to the viewers and the listeners that we have who like just started their career in the design industry, or probably are there and they want to come and work with Google?
Yeah, I think for designers just starting out, I think being curious, being passionate. Although these sound like they're big words, but then it's just as comes down to as simple as that. Like being active, reaching out to more people, cold emailing always is helpful. You don't know where you can get your first maybe an internship or a job from just a
Yeah,
cold email. So reaching out to people is important. Find people on LinkedIn, find people in your network, find out opportunities for yourself, because at the end it just comes down to you and how active are you in searching things and networking and like making those connections. Also working on your craft, working on the skill early on. Like don't think like very early on in your career to like go for a very big company or just work for like these particular companies. You can start with like an agency, or you can start with a startup, get skills, and then go with those skills to a bigger company where you can actually provide more value to those companies. So like think about things that you want to learn and how do you actually want to grow in your career. Like have goals, but then also be realistic
yeah.
about it. So yeah, that's my advice.
Damn nice. I'm sure everyone who'll hear this would actually get something and find this to be very insightful. And coming to the end now, what are your plans? Like, what are your future plans? Like, what do you have in mind? Let's say 5 years down the line, where do you see yourself?
I think 5 years is not a very long time, but I would just like in my career, I would think about like working in a role or working with a team with where I can actually provide more impact in terms of the product decisions or the business decisions as well. Well, with the design part as well. So I'm thinking more just not in terms of design, but also like the business part and also thinking about the holistic product
Yeah,
experience. So moving to a more senior position, thinking about different disciplines. Also like I love mentoring and helping like new designers. So be in a position where I can actually help people who need any help with design,
yeah.
and also help educate. Like I love educating. So if there could be an opportunity where I could actually like do any like a teaching thing or maybe mentoring thing, I'll definitely that is something that I want to pursue.
Okay. And are you like still like do you mentor people like currently as well?
Yeah, I do. So I'm on this website, website called UX
Yeah.
Coffee Hours, and I volunteer a few hours every weekend to like help students and like designers
Yeah.
or people moving from different fields to design. So yeah, I do that.
Okay. And if they want to get in touch with you, like someone like after listening this, he probably wants to get in touch with you, he or she, that you mentor him. So do they have to
Mhm.
go on that website? Coffee hours, right?
Yeah, it's called
UX
UX
coffee
Coffee
hours.
Hours.
Okay. And then they can get it.
Yeah, and you'll get like a list of really like interesting people with like very different
Yeah.
backgrounds and working at like different companies. So you can actually find a lot of people where whom you can ask for feedback, talk about your problems or issues, or get to know design from a like
Yeah.
different lens. So yeah, I highly recommend to use that website, find new designers, researchers, or any other discipline, and
Yeah,
go
I
for it.
think everyone should, like, especially for the new and upcoming designers, I think feedback is really important when it comes to UI and craft, because
Hmm.
emphasizing is something, once you start doing it, you'll get used to it. You'll understand like what exactly the user is looking at, or like how to get things
Yeah.
out of it. But for the visual parts, I think it's really important to keep getting feedback and not just keep it, with yourself. I don't think so, I'm too good or something. Because in the end, no design is a bad design, right? Like, you've done something, it's good.
Mhm.
Can be better, of course. So
Yeah, so definitely agree with what you said around feedback, and also around having those particular visual design skills early in your career is definitely
yeah,
really helpful, because especially for junior roles, they are looking for someone who can do the thing and who can actually
yeah,
build the thing, rather than like a lot of strategy things which you get to do once you know the product area better, or once you have like more context about the product. So definitely having getting feedback, doing that grind work around visual design, UI design, and making sure that the quality is it's
yeah,
great. So that is something that junior designers should definitely focus on.
yeah. Got it. So I would just want to say, like, it was really insightful talking to you. I've got a lot of insights, and I'm sure whatever we've had, whatever conversation we've had, it will help other people as well. People inspiring to be designers, people inspiring to work with Google. And I really want to thank you again for coming here, sharing your story with us, your experience, and I look forward to getting in touch with you again, and probably you can mentor me as well on a few things.
Yeah, it was great chatting with you. Thanks for having me on the podcast, and yeah, we are looking forward to more collaborations, and best of luck.
Thank you so much, man.
Hope you guys have learned a lot from Rahul. Hit the like button if you like this episode. इसी से हमें motivation मिलता है यार. We are also available on audio streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcast, and others. Thank you for listening. See you in the next one. Bye bye.